You can make some mistakes in Dragon Age the Veilguard that lock you out of specific abilities or slow down your power progression. Let's start with an easy trick that lets you deal way more damage in combat. Enemies of course have stagger bars above their health, and once it's full, they become stunned in place for a limited time. Now sure, you can immediately go for a powerful finisher, but it's actually way smarter to unleash a lot of abilities and attacks while the enemies are still staggered, and then at the final moment do the finisher, so you end up dealing way more damage. Also keep in mind that some weapons and attacks will deal more stagger damage than others. Like as a warrior, two-handed hammers often have the most stagger damage, so they're perfect for this technique. Don't forget to check the battlefield after you've killed everything, by the way, as enemies can also drop valuables and items, but these need to be picked up. So if you kill an enemy from far away, you might miss these items unless you check after combat and pick everything up. And speaking of missable items, you don't want to skip the smaller chests with loot and valuables either. The bigger ones that contain weapons and armor are marked on your map, but the smaller ones that can contain rings and amulets are not. In fact, sometimes they're hidden behind regular pots and crates that you can also break for some extra money or materials. So keep an eye out for these, because even the valuables you can also get from these chests are very, well, valuable, as they give you more than just money. If you sell these items to a faction vendor, you'll actually gain a small bit of faction power on top of gold. And while convenient, it's actually a mistake to use the sell all function at these faction vendors. While normally one valuable gives you +3 faction strength, if you sell the right valuable to the right faction shop, you actually get 15 strength, so 5 times the normal reward. So for example, the Veil Crystal gives you +15 if you sell it at the Veil Jumper shop you come across very early, while if you sell it to the Crows, you only get +3. And it works the other way around too, with the Venatori Sigil giving 15 faction strength, but only if you sell it to the Antivan Crows. Now correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I'm not sure if there is a way of telling this. So for now, it's just something you have to try. We'll keep you posted if we find more tricks for this. And by the way, subscribe, because we got way more Dragon Age videos coming your way, and leave a like if you enjoyed the video so far. So by increasing your faction power, you can eventually increase a faction vendor's rank, which will expand their inventory. It's overall smart to save up your regular valuables for the faction shop that actually sells items you want, and focus on leveling that faction rather than selling your valuables each time you get the chance. Doing quests for a faction will give you even more power of course, and remember that you always gain more reputation with the faction you pick during character creation, although that does not seem to apply to the faction strength you gain from selling items. Also, don't worry if the faction shops suddenly become unavailable when continuing with the story, just keep playing because you will be able to come back to each of them at a later moment. But investing in these faction merchants will help you unlock some cool weapons and armor early, and speaking of armor, did you know that every armor set also has an offensive boost? You might have glossed over it because armor is mostly supposed to be protective, but each armor and helmet also increases your ability damage by a certain score. In fact, light armors offer the biggest boost in damage while obviously being the least protective, whereas heavy armor gives the most defense but not as much power to your abilities. So don't make the mistake of simply picking the heaviest armor, especially as a rogue or a mage, as that can severely hamper your damage. Even warriors can dish out some major ability damage depending on your build, in which case medium armor might be a much better fit than heavy. One of the most important things you want to focus on though is the caretaker, aka the blacksmith in your home base, the lighthouse. You'll meet him early on, and while he can upgrade your items to a higher level, this is not something you want to be spending resources on, at least not in the early game. And that is because you can easily get higher rank items from gear chests or from shop vendors. By finding mementos in the world that you can see thanks to their special glow, you'll increase the caretaker's power, and you can always check the current power, by the way, right here in the top right of your inventory menu. Most mementos you find will reward 50 caretaker power, and you can also buy them from some merchants and faction vendors under the valuables and collectibles tab. After reaching 250, you can upgrade the caretaker for the first time, and the next upgrade requires you to collect 750 power. You will also get a notification that the required power has been reached, so then you immediately want to return to the lighthouse to rank the caretaker up. The rank of their shop namely doesn't only determine your max upgrade rank, it also influences the power of the items you then loot in the world, so when you're at caretaker rank 2, all items that drop will be at +2. And the same is the case for shops, like don't buy items in a shop when you are close to unlocking the next caretaker rank. If that's the case, then it's better to focus on reaching that next rank and then returning according to that same shop as all the items in the vendor's inventory will have increased in level. And there's another way in which the caretaker can make you stronger, but you'll have to progress until you reach the completing the Veilguard main quest, which involves recruiting the final companions. This unlocks the enchantment feature at the caretaker, where you can add an extra individual buff to an item. These range from extra damage or stagger on a weapon, extra elemental defenses on an armor set, or extra resource generation on a ring. You can't stack the same buff multiple times, like if you already have a buff on one ring, you can't apply the same one to your second. And also good to know is that more enchantments like this become available when you level up your caretaker. The best part about these buffs though is that they're completely free, like all of them, so don't make the mistake of ignoring this system as you're literally missing out on free powers. Starting at caretaker rank 5, you can even apply buffs to the weapons and armor of your companion, so these enchantments will definitely add up to make you more powerful in combat. And speaking of free, did you know you can grab some free skill points that are just lying around in the different regions? You'll need to unlock the Lyrium dagger first, which happens relatively early in the story. Once unlocked, you can use it to interact with these wolf statues that you'll find by simply exploring the different maps. Doing so will cause the statue to turn, and then you basically follow it in that direction until a smaller wolf statue spawns, which when picked up grants you a free skill point. With the amount of skills and passive buffs there are to unlock, you definitely want to get as many skill points as possible, so don't skip these statues. There is also a similar type of statue with a different challenge where you have to find and destroy several targets. These will increase your maximum health, which is obviously also a really nice bonus. You can see how many of these statues can be found in a region by checking the map, and like chests, there's a little indicator under the minimap to denote when you're close to one. But one of the biggest mistakes you want to avoid is underestimating how much your companions bring to the table. There's quite a lot to this system, so let's talk about how to get the most use out of them. For starters, you want to have a good look at each of their ability trees to see which skills and upgrades are available. You want to make sure to bring companions that can either set up status effects for you to detonate or detonate your status effects. But the upgrades might be even more important, especially since there are some skills that can automatically trigger if you upgrade them. This makes Bellara, one of your first companions, extremely valuable, as she has a healing ability that can trigger for free when you reach low health. This auto trigger does not make the skill go on cooldown, but do keep in mind it cannot trigger if the skill is on cooldown from a manual activation. Lucanis also has a really useful skill with an auto trigger called Adrenaline Rush, which is basically just a temporary damage increase. With the right upgrade, this skill can randomly trigger for free once per 60 seconds, so you can use these to early party members to permanently heal and buff yourself. However, you can lock yourself out of these support options if you're not careful, which is something I found out the hard way. I'm going to talk about this without spoiling any story details, so excuse me for being a bit vague here. But basically, there are certain choices that can cause a party member to become hardened, which means they are no longer able to use support abilities, but their offensive abilities will deal more damage than usual. So if that happens to your main support or healer, you need to come up with a new plan. The first time this can happen is right after the main story mission, A Warden's Best Friend, where you go and recruit Davrin. If you are able to, make a manual save before this so you can go back if you make the wrong call. After you return, you're presented with two options, and two of your party members will argue in favor of one of the two options. In my playthrough, I chose to listen to Nev, which led to Lucanis becoming hardened and losing access to his healing skill. Had I chosen to go with his suggestion, the same would have happened to Nev. So while there is no objective right choice in this scenario, if one of those two is a key member of your party, it might be smart to hear them out and heed their warnings. Another thing about hardened party members is that you increase your bond with them more slowly. This is basically their experience level, and the stronger your bond, the more skill points you unlock. Bringing party members on a quest will reward bond XP upon completion, so again it pays off to focus on the members that will offer you the strongest support in combat. But doing their personal quest of course increases your bond even more. It will also unlock some new gear to make them stronger, and in the end you will unlock a unique spell and outfit for them, so these are definitely worth your time. If you have more tips for Dragon Age the Veilguard, let us know in the comments and subscribe, as we'll be making a lot more videos on the game as well. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and if the next one is already up, you can watch it by clicking on the screen. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.